Hello, welcome to another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian, Pace reporting live here at Smalls, here in the heart of the West Village, here in New York City. Saxophonist, educator, as well as composer Jerry Bergonzi performed 4 unprecedented sold-out nights here at Smalls, performing music for his official New York record release performance, Extra, which is now available on High Note Savant Records. As you might know, Jerry came up in a very important time here in the 1970s during the loft jazz movement, and he came up with some very important saxophonists ranging from the great Michael Brecker, Dave Liebman, to the unprecedented Steve Slagle, just to name the many endless few. Tonight here on the Pace Report, you're going to see highlights of the New York record release performance of Extra, and we had a chance to sit down and break bread to discuss the loft movement of the 1970s, as well as we sit down and talk about his role as an educator, as well as we reflect on some of his very important musical influences, including the great Stan Getz. So sit back, relax, and enjoy highlights of Mr. Jerry Bergonzi performing music from his New York record release performance, Extra, live here at Smalls, here on the Pace Report, here in New York City.
1, 2, 3.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of interesting things about you, and one of the things that I'm going to be doing in the next 5-6 years with the musicians is talking about education, because you're one of the elder statesmen now, and you've been teaching for a minute. Talk about comping, and talk about improvisation, and talk about how you mesh both of them together.
About comping?
Yes.
Like piano comping and
Or you
guitar
can,
comping?
yeah, all of that.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think to myself that everybody that I play with, piano players, guitar players, all solo amazing. But comping is a special skill that not everybody has. And it's hard to figure out how to get somebody to get in that head. And basically, they asked me, what are you looking for in a rhythm section? And I said, you want my Zen answer? And they said, yeah, sure. I'm looking for a rhythm section that makes me sound good. How about that? And that means they have to have a history of the music. They have to know how people comp. The great Mulgrew Miller came to New England Conservatory and gave a master class one day, and he said, I solo okay, I'm all right. He said, but I'm never out of work. And they said, why is that, Mr. Miller? He said, because I studied how to comp. I can comp. I studied Herbie Hancock comping, McCoy Tyner, Chick Corea, Bill Evans, Wynton Kelly, Red Gallup. When I hear a horn player play, I know exactly what they want. That's a rare skill.
And coming from Mulgrew, who came from a class of pianists that have left a very different embodiment of the music, I guess your ears have to be receptive to not only, like you said, what the musician is doing, but you as a musician, how to complete the puzzle of the band. How hard or how easy is that?
Well, I love, there's a great quote, Joe Henderson quote. He said, Joe, how come this is what I heard now. I didn't hear him say it myself, so I'm just repeating the story that I heard. How come you're making all those trio dates without a chord places? On a clear day, you can see forever. I get it. It's like how to make somebody, give them what they need, set them up. Proactive, not wait for him to play something and you're going to answer it with something else, or he plays a line, you're going to play it back. It's not about that.
Now, you growing up, you had the best of both worlds in Boston. You had teachers that taught you how to improvise, taught you how to listen to the music, how to compose the music. How long did it take you to put it all together? Or is that a process still in work?
Yeah, it's a work in progress.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, people say, well, first of all, you said something that I didn't think was quite accurate. You said people had great teachers. Nobody taught improvisation. They teach chord scales and but they didn't talk about what to play, and that was learned. They say, well, how do I remember, how do anybody, you teach improvisation? Oh, I just listen to records, learn tunes. That was their approach. So a lot of the stuff that my generation learned, we had to figure it out ourselves by listening to records and trying to figure out a way or exercises that made us sound like what we were listening to.
Did you start off on alto first? Or did you start on tenor when you started?
I started on clarinet, and then I was playing a little alto. Then in the 8th grade, I heard John Coltrane and Wayne Shorter, Sonny Rollins, and Joe Henderson, and was tenor from there on. Except for 1 year I played alto.
From my understanding, I did some research on you. Lester Young was one of the first?
That was my first recorded music that I ever listened to. Lester Young with the Kansas City 6 or 7, Count Basie band, And my uncle who lived upstairs, one flight up, that was my first record.
Wow.
What a gift.
Well, Lester Young, he said more with less. And, he kind of set a whole different plateau for the saxophonist. Ben Webster, another one. Do you think that in the education world now, because you've been in Boston for a minute, do you think that the musicians are trying to understand the music, or do you think they're playing a lot of notes without feeling? Or is that a bad question? Because sometimes when you're an artist, you kind of find yourself into your thing.
Well, you know, when you're learning this music, there's so much history, and it's such a sophisticated music that the growing process is that you have to play this, play that. So, yeah, young musicians tend to play more than they need, and there's a great quote that I heard about Charlie Parker said that it takes you 10 years to learn how to play, and it takes you another 10 years to forget what you learned.
Right.
You know, I get all of that, but the same amount of creativity in the universe today as there was back then. Everybody's doing the best job they can, you know. And music is the master. We're all the students.
Right. During COVID-19, the world shut down, literally and figuratively. Did you at some point go back and reshed, or did you tweak out some your compositions? And
oh yeah, still tweaking them.
Really?
Yeah, and I read, somebody told me that there's another story, don't know if it's true, but that Wayne Shorter thinks that his compositions are living things, so he might spend 10 years on one, you know. So I'm going back, I'm going to change a chord here, I'm going to change a little melody note there. And because when you grow or you change, doesn't mean getting better, you've changed. You might want something in the tune to change.
It's funny you say that, because Wallace Roney, God rest his soul, Wayne Shorter gave him this music that he found 50 years later. And Wallace played the music at the Jazz Standard for the very first time. And I'm listening to Wayne's music, and I'm like, this music doesn't age at all. It actually ages like fine wine.
Yeah.
Do your compositions, do you feel that you wrote 30, 40 years ago, you come back to them like, wow, this is a hidden gem?
Yeah, some of them I say, yeah, this has withstood the test of time. Some of them I'll say, yeah, I think I'll change this, I think I'll change. And of course, it's not the composition, it's how you play it. I keep thinking that if you had a beginning composer write a tune and give it to Herbie Hancock to play, you think, wow, that's one of the greatest compositions I ever heard. If you give Herbie's composition to a beginning, you think, yeah, I don't get it. What's so great about that, you know? It's the performance. 1, 2, 3.
You were talking about, I read in an interview about, you were talking about musicians peak early. And
Some.
And I've done over 800 of these interviews, and I very seldom get a musician to talk about Stan Getz. I don't know what it is. We talk about Train, we talk about Lester Young, we talk about Parker, but Stan Getz is a person who, like Paul Desmond, had a very unique voice on the instrument.
Yes, indeed.
The very early Stan Getz, when I read when you said that, I was like, this is interesting. What was it about Stan early on in his career, in his style and his sound that?
In like 1950, was it 51 when he's playing Mosquito Knees, Hershey Bar, Tootsie Roll, and all those tunes? This sounded like there's a halo around him. Like God said, many are chosen, but many are called, but few are chosen. I'm choosing you. He just had this thing. It sounded like, you know, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
You're just born with it. You don't practice to get there. I mean, he was a genius, and yeah, there's so many stories that you hear, and anybody could tell you stories. It's this gentleman right over here, Harvie S, because he worked with Stan.
Yeah.
And yeah, he had a photographic memory. He could play a thing once, and he had it memorized. They tried to mess with him with Woody Herman's band. They did the rehearsal, and the night the gig comes, and they hit his music. He didn't need the music. He already played it once.
Yeah, I heard not only that, his songbook, he was very well versed on a lot of musical styles, but also the American Songbook.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about the Masters now. You know, Roy Haynes just turned 99, and you had an opportunity to play with Roy.
Yeah, in 67 or 68, I was at the Western Front. I played with him for a month, I think 4 nights a week or something like that. With Carl Schroeder played the first 2 weeks, and then Charlie Bernakis played the second 2 weeks.
Wow.
Steve West was on trumpet, and then Steve West came on. Marvin Hannibal Peterson played the first 2, and Nakamura, what's it? Bass? Yeah, he played bass. And it was like a lesson, because we'd be playing in the middle of an up-tempo, all of a sudden the band would stop. You got it.
Really?
Yeah, because saying, okay, I want to hear the form that changes everything. It's like going to school, you know.
Tell me the first time you met Jerry.
Okay. Listen, Jerry and I go back to like, I met Jerry when my first year at Berkeley. Now you gotta understand, I came to Berkeley, I was a piano player, okay?
Really?
Yeah, and in my first semester, I decided I really hated my piano playing. I bought a bass from a guy for like $60, an old beat up plywood, and I started playing the bass. And I met Jerry, and suddenly Jerry and I became friends, and we hung out all the time. And he started saying like, you know, I have a band with Charlie Banakis and this guy Jack Diefendorfer, who was a phenomenal drummer. Phenomenal. I'd been playing the bass for 3 months or a couple of months. And we did a TV show. I was playing in this band. I couldn't believe it. I said, these guys must be crazy to be hiring me, because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't even know how to construct bass lines. Somehow they liked me. And then Jerry and I became very good friends through that. And then after we went through school, then Jerry left Berkeley, and I didn't see him a lot, but we kept in touch and we did some things together. Then I moved to New York, and that's a whole story, but I won't get into that now. And then I talked to Jerry. I said, "Why don't you move to New York? We became roommates." So we were roommates for a year. And then Jerry, decided, says, I don't really like New York. I want to do something else. So he moved back to Boston. So I've known this guy for a long time.
This album is very special, and some really rich and some warm tunes on here. What's the recording process like with Jerry?
Well, this is probably different than most of his records. I talked to Jerry. I said, Jerry, we should do some recording together. He said, yeah. I said, and I've recorded a lot of records.
Right.
I recorded the last 3 Alan Broadbent records, and I recorded the one with Roberta Pickett, and I've been mixing. A lot of people hire me to mix with their records. I've been doing a lot of that. So I said, Jerry, let's do it, and let's do it at your house. So we recorded this record in his house. And I said to Jerry, I said, well, you look at, he doesn't have a real piano, and he doesn't really have that in the room where we're going to record. Let's use guitar. I said, let's get Cheryl Bailey, because you don't get better than that. And so that's what we did. So we did it up in his office room up there. I set up the microphones, and we did one day. What is funny has happened. We did one. The first day was going to be just a test recording, because when I record, I do everything live. I like to have one day to do a test recording and make sure everything works and how everything balances, because I have to balance everything. I use 6 mics, but still, it's a lot to do. So I set the thing up, and that afternoon Phil couldn't make it because the rehearsal day, because he was very busy with school. So I said, well, just do the sound without you, get everything together. Well, it ended up we recorded part of the record without him that day, because some things came out so good, and they recording-wise came out good. So then the next day Phil came in, and we recorded the rest of the record. But my whole concept is I really love the idea of everyone being in the same room, and because all the great records that I've listened to, like Way Out West, Sonny Rollins, the Miles Davis stuff on Columbia, a lot of the early Blue Note records and the Prestige records, they were all done like those Coltrane records. I've seen pictures. They're all in the same room all together. Music sounds different than when you're in a booth, and I'm not against it, but it's different. But so that's what I like to do, is not do the whole thing in little booths, but do it like that. So we just went in and we recorded, and I have my special way of recording, and then I mix it, and then we master it, and I'm involved in the whole process.
Dave Brubeck was another person who very much was a part of your life. You played with him for about close to 8 years?
No, 6 years. 3 years, and now it's 3 years off, then 3 years on again.
When I was a kid, my grandfather, that was really my first exposure into jazz music. He was a huge Brubeck fan. And his bands have always had... His music is not very, very easy to play.
Yeah.
How did you learn, and what did you adapt, or how did you adapt to playing with Brubeck?
Well, you know, the thing about Dave, he's a natural musician. He has amazing ears. So he didn't, when I played with him, he didn't write it down any music. We just learned to play. Yeah, he played on the piano, and we'd have to learn it. And sometimes he didn't even know what to call the chord. He said, Dave, on that third bar of that tune, could you play that chord? What is that? He said, oh, that's just a D7. He's playing a D minor 7 flat 5. But at that generation, well, yeah, it's a D7 of some sort, you know. It's a different ball game today. Everything's like, everybody knows because of jazz education and universities, and it's a different thing.
I was going to say, Jerry, because you know, now a lot of the elder statesmen they've left us. The gatekeepers have left us, and the younger generation that wants to play this music, are they having opportunity to play in places in Boston, or when you go around the world and you hear younger musicians, what are you noticing that they are really gravitating to as far as the representation of this music?
You know, at every generation, there's something in the air, something that's going on the planet that their antenna is up, and they're just picking up, and it comes out in the music. So like the music that was happening in the 60s, the avant-garde, this, that, it's not in the air today. Something different is happening. So they're picking up on that music. And they're the antenna of today, and they're broadcasting that, what's going on. In the 60s, not only did you have Miles's group live and well, Coltrane live and well, Ben Webster was live and well, Coleman Hawkins, the swing guys, the hard bop guys, everybody, the avant-garde. It was all going on at the same time. It wasn't pigeonholed, this is that. Today, it's a different story. They're learning, going back and kind of saying, oh yeah, I'm going to learn this, that. I'd go to a session back then, and one day we're playing avant, Come to the Moon, the next day we're playing all Miles tunes, the next day we're playing Coltrane tunes, you know. It's a different thing.
been blessed to document and interview a lot of your contemporaries from the loft period, the 70s. Dave Liebman's been on my show a couple of times. I was honored to break bread with Steve Grossman. You came in that very important era at a time when music in the New York music scene was changing. What was it about the loft scene in the 70s that helped enhance what you guys were trying to envision musically at that time?
Well, first of all, you could afford a loft. Like, I lived on 6th Avenue, I think it was 819 6th Avenue, and my roommate was Art Barron, and we split the rent. The rent was $150 a month, 75 each. You could play 24/7. Then I moved around the corner on 114 West 28th. I think Harvie S was at 112, 2 adjacent buildings, and the rent was $250 a month. And you could play 24/7. And so that I would tell one saxophone player, hey, I'm having a session tomorrow. We would have sessions every day, but I'd tell one guy, 5 saxophone players would show up. You know, Joe Lovano, Steve Slagle, Billy Drews, Paul Moen, Eric Turkel, you know, Ken Hitchcock, all showing up to sometimes Liebman, Grossman, Craig Herbert, Bob Berg, Mike Brecker. It was just a chance to play.
You know, when we talk about Dave Liebman, you know, Dave was very proficient on the tenor, but also don't sleep on the soprano sax. Did you, when you met David for the first time, what was it that you noticed about him musically that set him apart from all of your contemporaries?
To me, he had his own sound. There's something, as soon as I hear Liebman, so that's Liebman. That's what set him apart. I mean, you know, all coming from the John Coltrane school of, one of the schools. Of course, we have many influences, but you could hear that in his playing, and Steve Grossman and Mike Brecker, Bob Berg, but the way he did it, he had his own take on that. Just, yeah, the way he played the time, those little vibratos he puts in there, his articulation, those things. And he didn't seem to play cliches. He would come up with, you know, different things all the time.
That's interesting, because when I was coming into jazz and taking it really seriously as a music fan and as trying to understand the history of it, there were 3 saxophonists that I played in the late 80s and 90s, high school. It was you, it was Michael Brecker, and it was Branford Marsalis. And all of you were coming from very different kinds of styles. And was there an explosion of saxophonists when Brecker finally released it? Because I remember like 86, 87, there was a whole lot of tenor saxophonists that were out there doing that thing.
Yes, but especially at that time, Mike Brecker had such a huge influence on, like, every tenor saxophone player wanted to sound like Mike Brecker, you know, younger guy, not Branford but yeah, that's the way it is. Yeah.
What do you think about Michael now? You know, that he's gone. What do you think that his legacy has done musically as well as spiritually? Because a lot of people don't realize this, but there's a spiritual connection to music.
Oh, hello. That is the connection. Yeah, it's spiritual. You know, it's a spiritual. It takes place in the abstract part of the mind. You're connected to other spheres, the higher mind. The higher mind is intuition. The higher emotions are inspiration. It's inspiration and intuition. That's, you know.
That'll do it again for another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace reporting live here from Smalls, here in the West Village, here in New York City. I'd like to personally thank the incomparable Jerry Bergonzi for his time. Make sure you support his latest High Note Savant Records release, Extra Extra, which is now available on iTunes and Amazon.com. For more information on Jerry's upcoming performances, please visit him online on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and jerrybergonzi.com. I'd like to personally thank the staff and management here at Smalls for their warm hospitality. For more information on directions and upcoming shows here at Smalls, please visit them online at smallslive.com. As always, people, I can't stress this more than enough. Please like, share, and subscribe to the videos here on YouTube and Vimeo, as well as follow me on social media by way of Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Till next time, peace.